The area back here at one point was tree mesh land. This town was Solness, this where we're sitting, where we're literally sitting, and given some of these trees and the canopies that they created and everything. Very likely would have been
a burial.
I don't know, like a burial, but definitely a gathering place of some sort. You can tell that this entire area is very special. But this town that we're on and where we are on this town would have been one of those locations. But is this the reason for some of the strange activity out of here? I don't know. Maybe. There's a break at the very end of my street, and there's an acoustic testing whistle that I do. It's kind of that. Very specific sort of whistle. I give out to a particular sort of note. Mm-hmm. I like to whistle that. And as I was approaching the Barranco not yesterday, but last week, I heard that exact whistle being whistled back at me. Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, wild. And it was interesting too, so I thought it was my wife. So I go walking down there and I'm whistling too, my dog's with me.
You must have found a fucking bird.
Something.
Dude, a bird. They must have been really hearing that common shit. Is it the same area?
Yeah, no, it was, but here's the thing, it was the same whistle, because I did the exact same whistle back, and it sounded like it was mine. It was exactly sounded like it was my whistle.
The only explanation, if it's not re-echoes, is a bird or picking it up.
Or a phone automatically going off, my own phone possibly. Could have been a bird, but it was like late in the middle of the night and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And it was my sound.
In the night?
Yeah.
Oh, well then I don't think a bird would be doing this.
It was about 11 o'clock at night, and just for whatever reason there was like some strange kind of activity, because she was walking around with her dog, and she had like a really interesting, just interest towards there, but didn't want to go all the way down there. And of course, to my own interest, I thought maybe my wife was down there, so I started walking down there investigating, because my wife went on she just had like a bunch of energy, and she's like, I want to go for a run real quick. I'm like, cool, because the place is actually pretty safe. Not all the time. You have to, I gotta keep your head on a swivel, like anywhere. But if you're aware enough, and you don't have the same patterns every night, anywhere is potentially safe. Anywhere can potentially be safe. It's just a matter of, we grew up in Oxnard. Keep an eye out for the signs.
Well, if anything, out here, wouldn't there be more to worry about with wildlife than...
Yeah, true. Like bears
than crime?
Bears and,
more wildlife than crime. The wildlife is the crime.
Yeah, you're right. There's more wildlife danger out here than there would be crime. But as long as you're staying, particularly, in the main streets and everything, the lack of... The chances of running into wildlife is up there with the same amount of, chances of running into crime, basically. Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely correct. Yeah, there's more wildlife out there.
Yeah,
or something, or anomalous.
Because I'll tell you right now, the only one running in the streets in my neighborhood is the raccoons, the skunks, and the stray cats.
Oh, so
they dominate.
What part of Wyoming are you
in? Near, pretty much, it's at the corner of Clear and Second, next door to Passages.
Has things calmed down since the 90s over there? Because I remember it was like...
Oh, no.
No, it hasn't.
No. Yeah. It's still rowdy as fuck. It caught me off guard.
Oh, I got you.
I thought it was going to be quiet as fuck. Beachy shit,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, beachy shit, right.
Dude, the house says beachy.
Ooh.
So I even added a sailboat wheel to my thing.
Cool.
To where normally the flag goes, but I don't have a habit of the flag. You better put a fucking habit of a flag, asshole. I want the flag habit,
Yeah, I hear you.
I want the watering my lawn habit.
Right.
I have the facilitated. I just am not installing my fucking habits and routines.
Oh, I understand what you're talking about. It's kind of funny because as somebody struggling with ADHD, kind of funny that that's my cat, by the way. Mm-hmm. It's Edgar. He just stays out in the back.
Bitchin'.
Yeah, he's a good cat.
Stays out of trouble, it looks like.
Stays out of trouble, yeah. Well, there's a reason why we have all this bamboo sort of fencing up.
Yeah.
A really thin wire, and what happens is as soon as he tries to jump off, it just slips right back down.
Good.
So but at the same time, the couple of times that he has gotten those, there's a dog in like every single freaking yard. So there's a small dog over there. Good cough.
Yeah.
Here's your water. Yeah. Let me help.
Holy shit. Oh.
I don't know why that happens out here. Or maybe. You're good, bud. Don't worry. I actually need one. Happens to me too.
Watch your step.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. Happens to me too. Alright.
Okay. Thank you.
All good. Don't worry about it. You okay?
So yeah, struggling with ADHD, getting a routine in place.
Oh man, yeah, it's like a muscle basically. With that.
Wow, yeah, you're very right.
It's exactly.
It has to be trained.
Neurodivergence. Were we in the same special ed classes together?
No.
I was the only motherfucker that was in special ed out of all our friends.
How did they put you in a special ed?
I had early signs of autism early on in my
Gotcha.
developmental stage, and plus I had dyslexia. They were noticing that I wasn't able to comprehend and read as well. At first, I don't know who it was. I just remember it was either my parents or it was a counselor. Okay, so a counselor thought that I was just being lazy. She was convinced that I was just not just putting in the effort to read, and I was. The problem was that every time I would read, for whatever reason, looking at the things and getting the information, like depending on the way the thing was written, it wouldn't resonate. Hey, Mark, what did you just read? I can't tell you. So I have to read it, and you get it. Yeah. It's a form of ADHD. It's a form of ADHD. Mm-hmm. So dyslexia, which is even crazier, which is another level up. The words would change.
That's just how they managed it back then.
Yeah, the words would change.
They stick you in a.
So
in my opinion,
go for it.
Do you feel that those classes helped with the development at that early of an age, or were they counterproductive?
Both. Both. So I can fully, because I think about this a lot. Fully auditing those classes. There was I remember the classes I was stuck in junior high. I remember the classes I was stuck in elementary school. I remember the classes I was stuck in high school. And then when I got into college, I actually tried my very hardest to lie and get around the entire sort of idea that I needed extra help or something like that. I very much tried to do it on my own for as much as possible, and then it just fucking murdered me. And eventually, I had to go and get help. It was crazy.
Oh, no shit.
Wild,
nice.
It was tests.
But that's a great, at least you had the courage.
Yeah, it was tests. I was trying to I was just trying to sit down, read the tests, sit down, go home, read, and then do these tests, and I was just having so much fucking, and just issues, and I read the books and stuff like that, but then I was like, why the fuck am I having a hard time trying to read and comprehend?
That sounds exactly like what happened to me in the Air Force.
Really? Oh, shit. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yes.
I
was answering the questions before the question was finished being answered and answered correctly. Yeah. And when I go to take the test, I'd fail it by about 1 or 2.
Did we take ROTC together?
Negative.
Negative that. Gotcha.
No.
That was how I discovered that I shouldn't go into the military, was ROTC. And then getting into my ASVAB test, which was incredibly low. Interesting number, though, because that number synchronistically has popped up in my life in different places and everything, and even sort of mystical places, too.
You scored low on the ASVAB.
Immensely. I couldn't, it was the same.
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. That's understood. When it comes to test taking, that's where the ASVAB, I think, plays an unbalanced threshold of entrance.
Well, at the same, yes. at the same time, I like to also think that one of the reasons why they look for the high score is because it's like you don't have any information. You need to be able to solve this sort of puzzle in all these different kinds of ways, as in this very specific time frame.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy too because the recruiter was very nice. He was like, "This is your score." He just like looks at me and he's waiting for me to say something, and I said, I'm sorry. And he's like, with this score, you could retake it, go into the army, and be a bullet catcher.
Oh man!
Like fuck! I hated that. I hated that term because I knew exactly what he meant. And I was just like, and it was crazy later because I heard that exact phrase in my 40s from a captain in the army who was also a doctor. And that person makes me afraid of like the individuals that are in charge of the sort of mental health of our soldiers, because that individual was crazy as fuck. Oh my god, gaslighting, big user of different kinds of like substances and stuff like that, and all of a sudden it's just like, if as soon as you get into a argument or disagree with the person and whatnot, it was interesting too because this individual was very quick to point at their ex and call that individual a concealed narcissist. But then when you would talk to this individual and have a disagreement or challenge them on their own sort of perspective of themselves and other things and how they're treating people, they went on a 24-hour narcissistic tyrant, just hate mobbing. Just completely...
It triggered him.
Oh, yeah, my God. And it just came out, and it was crazy because, like, this person was giving me all this fantastic fucking information about, like, deception tactics and ways of manipulation and stuff like that, but from the perspective of being a deception expert, an expert.
I wonder if they were a fucking Gemini.
No, I can't. And because I still want to honor the sort of past friendship that I had with this person, even though I can't fucking stand them now. I still want to honor that aspect of them when I really loved them. So I can't say, but I will say that there are some scary people out there, and people do project. And
you're not talking about Johnson.
Mr. Johnson is right now in jail.
I'm not surprised.
I know, right? Yeah, he definitely fucked around, and he definitely found out. And that's pretty much what happened to Mr. Joe. And it's unfortunate because if he would have been better on the level, I could have learned some stuff from him immensely. I could have learned some just incredible life lessons, and I mean the friendship and the sort of work that I wanted to do with this person. In the end, it was just like, it was interesting too because I was having some issues at the time as far as being the individual that he wanted me to essentially be. Maybe it's more of a very flying monkey of me to say that. Interesting.
He does have like Alpha's here.
Yeah.
He's like somewhere in here.
Considers himself to be sort of like, he considered himself to be on the same track as Elon Musk
that's well said. Well said.
Or Tony Stark or anything like that. He thought so fucking highly of himself, and well deserved too, because he achieved some amazing fucking shit. But you can be an utter failure in another area, and that's where he is right now. He could not control that area. And unfortunately, he fucked around and he found out. And he's now in jail because of it. So it's just like...
Testing the limits?
I'm good. Yeah, that's sure!
Oh, by the way, you know Japanese.
Skoshi hanashimasu. Demo mata jouza jojimasen. That basically means that I know a little bit, but I'm not skilled. I'm not skilled. And the reason I was able to say that was because that's one of the few phrases I've memorized.
That's not bad, though. That's for especially not knowing the language. That was fluid, and
thank you.
Well said. It is a decent phrase to know.
I can make my way around.
That's perfect.
Japan, but just enough to say, "Excuse me, where is this? Thank you. Can you help me find this?"
I'm gonna take this moment to project a trip of us going to Japan and enjoying the culture for like roughly 5 days is the max I could usually do. And my dad says that's nowhere near long enough, and I completely understand.
Has he been to Japan?
I'm Japanese. He took us. Yes. Hiroshima, Peace Park.
Dude, that's my favorite place on earth.
I know. Yes.
That's my favorite. That's actually that's one of my favorite places on earth. I have 5 favorite places on earth. They're not like the top places. It's just
I know, huh? I know, right? It's like Disneyland of adult trips or of places on earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Places on earth.
The culture is so phenomenal.
Especially the difference between like Tokyo culture, Osaka culture, Hiroshima culture. Because like
I have yet to have that revealed.
It's crazy.
I have not absorbed that different perspective yet, but I look forward to it.
It's so kind of like Oxnard culture versus Ventura culture.
No shit. Interesting. Okay.
It's a little bit like it's like or different cities have different cultures. Like living in Ventura County most of our lives and everything like that. A lot of people listening to this don't get it, but actually no. I can imagine that there would be individuals who have lived in a town long enough to be able to understand that there are just certain places or certain sort of cities, provinces, or whatnot, and everything like that. They just have like a different kind of energy or vibe, and definitely, Tokyo versus Osaka versus Hiroshima. Like Hiroshima is interesting because they roll their R's, like.
Interesting.
And it's interesting, and that's where I actually learned to do all of my R sounds, because as you know, like it's ra, ri, ru, re, ro, and you're almost going la 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 when you're saying that ra, ri, ru, re, ro. But if you do it fast enough, especially English speaking, sort of like close to Mexico, being able to roll your R's.
Right. Yeah.
This is the part of America where we learn to roll our R's.
Yes.
At a very young age. Where we learn the word chico de madre at a very young age. And
carne asada.
Carne asada. Ah, señor.
Por favor.
Amigo. So it's just like, I don't speak a word. I speak a couple words of Spanish, but that's about it. It's kind of funny at my coworkers. I had a friend of mine who was from Guadalajara, and Roberto. He was the coolest dude there. I loved him to death too, because he would just show up and he'd always challenge you, but like on an intellectual level. And he was just a cool dude. Got into drafting. But long story short, he would say Mark, because he was convinced that he was like, I bet he knows Spanish. I bet he fucking knows Spanish. And so he started asking me things in Spanish. He'd be looking at me. Okay? He's like, you fucking know. You know. And then, so eventually I just said, look, I don't speak Spanish, though. I don't speak Spanish. I just can say a few phrases. I don't understand Spanish. But I can tell you this. Ask me a question. He asked me a question. I said, "Tu madre." He started laughing his ass off. So for like about a couple of months, we had this like really crazy thing going to where all of a sudden, he'd stop any conversation that was going on in the office. And he'd go, "Mark!" And I knew because he'd say it the exact way. And he'd say something to me in Spanish. Espanol. He said something to me in Espanol, and then I just look at him directly in the face, nod my head while I'm saying it, and say, "Tu madre." Everyone was laughing about it. And then 2 minutes later and everything, we moved on. So, man.
I learned a little bit of Spanish working my first job as a computer technician in Oxnard, California.
I was going to ask you, yeah.
The owner was Mexican, and so I learned "Andele pues" is "alrighty then."
Alrighty then. Yeah.
And that his name, the owner's name was Domingo, which is Sunday.
Domingo, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what else? Vente. Frente. Those 20 and 30.
Okay.
That's about the. It was because they were throwing around this language, and because I chose video productions over Spanish class is why I didn't absorb any of the understanding. Had I taken Spanish class,
So you remember Mr.
Cummins, yes sir.
God, piece of shit,
dude. wild, interesting guy to deal with, and I'm surprised he put up with me for as long as he did. He probably changed and got out of video productions because of me.
Yeah. Interesting. I couldn't deal with him at all. I couldn't deal with his stress level. But at the same time, I did appreciate him in one of the classes that he did teach, which was personal growth. He was phenomenal in that class. I mean, he was shitty ass teacher, and yeah, like the couple of times that he didn't work it the entire time. I believe I can't actually remember. I can't remember if it was him or somebody else that took over the class, but for a while it was him, and he was pretty damn good.
Deerdorf. Todd Deerdorf took over.
Ah, okay, that's right. Todd Deerdorf took over. Then Deerdorf took over. Yeah.
Yeah, and I lasted probably 2 semesters and then by the 3rd time I tried to sign up, they didn't give it to me, and I went to the counselor's office to ask, like, what happened? I applied for it. They said you can't take this class no more. What are you talking about?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean I can't take it?
Yeah, they did the same thing with me with drama. They wouldn't let me take it anymore. They wanted to, but it was cool because like the principal was like, you can't take drama anymore, but I want you to be in drama.
Dude.
So she's like, so I'm gonna have you be a teacher's aide for drama, and I'm like, oh, so I'm not receiving credits. Instead, I'm just basically I get to like hang out in drama club, and I get to be this like influencer of just ordered chaos, and it was so fucking it was so much fun. So oh my god, it was like the
that's right, I remember. Oh like god. Dude, you had this aura of I completely remember
go for it.
Going it was as if,
did you see that?
It was as if you're you're not in some sort of hierarchy perspective. You were the king on drama, and everybody else was like, they were there to hang out and participate, given the energy that you brought to the table.
Yeah, I noticed that. Senior year was exactly that, yeah.
That's why your nickname was Crazy, and I was like, why is this guy's nickname Crazy?
Yeah, because his energy.
I hung out for long enough to understand. Like,
it's his energy. It's his energy. It's and then
life of the party.
Life of the party, but also at the same time too, there was. Well, I had a tremendous amount of energy. Now it's like now it's really funny. That's why I've adopted. It's almost like every nickname I've taken. Whenever I think of Crazy, and that name was interesting too because I needed that energy for a band I was in. And there was a bunch of people from college and high school that still knew me as Crazy. So I was like, let's make this name now into a character on stage. And eventually I was going to make this like crazy looking skinwalker doll up on stage. But then I was just like, well, what if I just kind of took away the horror element and left it imposed in our music? It's like we're singing, you don't know, to make of us, we look weird, it's just like, And then these lyrics that we're talking about are like esoteric, like just death music, basically. And that's what it was. It was just like we go to steampunk shows and everything like that, and everyone's just like, "What the fuck is this up on stage?" And then later on, we go to these horror rock shows, and people are like, "We fucking love you," and we're like,
steampunk?
"Oh, yeah, it was crazy." Like
there's steampunk music.
Yeah, it's horrible.
So like
that's what I said.
Okay. So there were instruments with the emphasis in the steampunk era. Is that the sound?
Steam. So it's just like it's a lot of Victorian influenced, even vaudevillian sort of influence.
And on the topic of steampunk, would you agree that this was a technology that was purposely phased out?
That's a really interesting question that one would ask.
They had it going for them with these steam engines, steam locomotives.
Yeah. I do know that we tapped into some the early between 1880 between 1880 and 1910 was a very interesting time in innovation and American just like the engine of America. Mm-hmm. A lot of really interesting things were coming out there in that time. I mean, you hear stories about airships and everything at that time. Mm-hmm. They more than just a Hindenburg, like private stuff.
Right.
And these stories of like, and you actually really, and it wasn't just that. It was also like flying discs you would hear about, or flying cigars. Cigar shaped. That's why they say cigar shaped craft. And it's kind of funny how we still see some of those sort of anomalous aerial phenomenon. Or just whatever it is now. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny with UAP. it's unidentified, of course, aerial or...
They just rebranded.
Yeah, I love the new rebrand, though. You went from aerial phenomenon...
Really?
Yeah, because it makes
dig it.
Anomalous.
I think...
Okay. Unidentified,
yeah, I guess so.
Phenomena, because what that does all of a sudden is it puts us going unidentified flying objects. Well, it's no longer flying objects. Okay, well, it's aerial phenomenon. Well, shouldn't just be aerial phenomenon, because there's stuff, living off.
I think that they also wanted to redefine and take out the word flying.
Yeah, take out the word flying too,
because that's not defined.
Yeah,
flying is defined under a different circumstance of properties.
Yeah.
Elemental properties, these are not subject to those elemental properties.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, how many times living by the ocean have you seen something yet that you just could not explain in the water?
Not yet.
You haven't?
No. The only thing I know of is that shit off of Magoo.
Dude, I just
the coast of Magoo.
I've seen lights in the water,
mm-hmm.
all just places where you shouldn't have seen lights. And I've seen it a lot of the time, some of the times, and it was kind of interesting too because I was standing right next to somebody at Surfers Point in Ventura, of all places. And so we're off the beach. We're in
which direction?
It's right in the beginning of Surfers Point.
But where was this phenomenon?
I was looking directly into the ocean. I was playing flute.
Okay.
I was jamming my little flouter self out.
Was it towards L.A. or towards Santa Barbara?
It was I was looking towards L.A. So yeah.
Okay.
I was.
That's synonymous with Magoo.
Yeah.
Where this supposed.
Oh, I see what you're talking about. Well, the phenomenon that I experienced when I was a kid, I saw stuff out there, but I was an experiencer of this weird sort of phenomenon at a very, very early age. So instantly having the sort of synchronicities of just like all of a sudden look, you hear this inner voice kind of tell you, look up. And look up. And then you see this craft coming over it, and you don't hear it, you feel it.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that strikes you at the craft is that it looks like a cheap prop from the 1950s.
Oh.
Like, I'm seeing a UFO, but I'm seeing an actual flying saucer. But why does it look like that? That's what I remember thinking at 14. I can still see it in my head too. Like if you were to put your hands up into the sky like this, that's how big it was to me. That's how far away it was. So however big it was, and you could fucking feel it in your chest. It's like I all of a sudden became aware of the ear.
It's as if you became aware of the frequency in which they were communicating with, and that's this frequency that your body is able to tune in with.
And it's crazy because I can't even say 100% whether or not what was in that craft was, maybe it was humans, using some sort of anomalous craft. And I say anomalous craft because it's like we don't know. So, and that's one of the really great things about that word anomalous, because it's like it's something that's it's something that we haven't been able to
description.
Yeah, we haven't been able to basically form the words to be able to to
and it is much more appropriate label.
Yeah, I love the new.
I was disappointed at first, but now that talking about it in terms of that, it helps.
Yeah.
And from a disclosure narrative to relabel it in terms of that, so that we don't have to confuse the definition of flying.
For me, as a person who is looking for answers, I've been looking for answers my entire life, and what's great and interesting about this is as I've been looking for answers, I've had more experiences. I've had experiences with my wife. I would love to actually put her under. I'd actually like to get somebody. I'd have to be somebody out like a Bud Hopkins sort of an individual, but or Ripley Strieberg or that sort of individual. But hypnotize my wife and basically get out of her some of these experiences that we've had together, because her mind she might be able to remember some of these things. We've had these really crazy experiences together, and what's crazy about it is she hasn't been able to remember some of them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It's a screen, basically.
They're as if the experience just erases itself.
They call it kindness. I've heard people jokingly, refer in like certain kinds of like literature or fiction. When a person's like in this one book, I can't remember what it's called, but this like thing comes out, like a robot, and tries to like inject this woman in the neck with something that kills her. The robot's saying, "Don't worry, this is a kindness," that sort of thing. I hated that phrase when I heard it. It may have been in a video game, I'm not sure, but it evoked such tremendous terror inside of me because, like, I knew that term from somewhere else in the past, and when I explored that question in my mind, like, why is that phrase evoking such terror inside of me? I found almost like it's like when like when you go into your computer and you're able to visually see like all the different sort of data and disk space that's there, and you start erasing stuff. And then you can look back and you can actually see that stuff was missing. Mm-hmm. And then there are these files that just can't be removed.
Yes.
And doesn't make any sense why those files are still there, but it's because something was there previously. That's what it felt like here. And then there was like a key phrase basically that went with that sort of that whatever it is, and that little trauma trigger.
Right. I was gonna say that trauma thing.
A kindness. Yeah.
Huh.
It's fucked with me. It's fucked with me all my life.
That seems like a gaslight.
I fuck with it too.
Calling it a kindness seems like a gaslight.
It is. No, well, it's not. It's not a gaslight. It really is a kindness. But it's only a kindness for if our lives
I guess maybe.
Well, check it out. If you want, I had a girlfriend in Japan. And she was a experiencer of strange phenomenon herself. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to work with her to get her to basically be a master of this phenomenon and either work with it or set up barriers for herself to be able to kind of tell it to step the fuck back. Mm-hmm. And eventually what happened was she found that. She found a teacher out over there that taught her these like breathing techniques and focusing techniques. And then she just kind of became her own mystic. I have a great amount of respect for this person still. She became like a really amazing individual, but profound, amazing individual. For her, she wanted a normal life. And so she has the normal life now. And she mentioned she has this other life behind her that she keeps closed.
Right.
She doesn't know.
It's a management thing.
Yeah, and there's actually quite a few Japanese women I know that are like that. There's another woman. I'm friends with both her husband. Her husband's an old friend of mine. Really great dude. Hoping to visit them next year, but very soon. I mean, maybe in the next 18 months or so. Mm-hmm. But she's a medium. She can see stuff.
Oh, bitchin'.
And what's interesting to me is I've tested her with what I would consider to be mediums. What I would consider to be individuals who can actually not necessarily see the dead, but see something that is like a psychic projection of something else, or something on the in-between, or something, something in that sort of area to where other people, like in a sort of half-hypnagogic state, can verifiably see something. And when I mean verifiably, I don't mean like, in a laboratory, but verifiably to each other without doing the Me Too phenomenon. Like perhaps they write something down on a piece of paper, what they saw, and then they go back later, putting all their pieces of paper together and everything, and they see that they all saw something. All of their observations. There's this 90% sort of synchronicity, or 90% like kind of verification that something was there, and then there's this other 10% of like something else, or maybe a certain sort of way they would have seen it. That kind of verifiable sort of phenomenon, to where an entire team working with one another is able to corroborate what they had observed. Sort of like what you would read in the book Skinwalkers in the Pentagon. Axelrod in that book, the things that he talks about. But no, I'm good. We're all good. So, but yeah. There's it's interesting. The whole concept of a kindness only is a kindness for those to where it would not help them. It's like if you have this entire experience and you get information and then you don't know what to do with it, You know, it's just like that's one of the most maddening things about my life. You know, I've never gone out and tried to get published. I never tried to get in front of like a camera and talk about this. The only time I've really ever talked about the phenomenon is being an investigator of it.
Okay.
And one time when I was sitting down and talking about like, you know, balls of light that you see in a camera or particles or stuff like that, and I was talking about it from the standpoint of an actual photographer, trained photographer who went to college for photography. I studied photography for a very long time. I do it professionally. I work in Photoshop. It's like I'm nowhere like a doctor with it. At the same time, I understand it enough to understand that some of the balls of light that we see in camera just are they're natural things, and other times they're not. Like, why is that one ball of light like directly over this gravestone? You know, when I take a photo. And there's a lot of fucking photos like that. There isn't just one photo of like oh look, there's a light bulb over it. Oh, that's weird. You know, that would then, if it's just some sort of random act, that means that you're not going to see it over and over again.
There's some consistency to it.
There's always a fucking consistency there, and so it's just like you usually have to have a flash in your camera, you know, to be able to do that. That's the
but when there's no flash involved, it begs the question.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant. So you have a consistency of this.
There's a consistency.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so, have you been saving this catalog?
Well, I have a book. I have not gone out and you know, to be honest, yeah, I have not gone out and saved these images or whatnot. Because I'm horrible at taking notes. ADHD and organization.
Right? Yes.
Yeah, you understand. You know.
Yes, absolutely. I have a few notepads. I started working with Bixby in my phone.
I think I have a tote, at least a tote worth of notepads that are only probably used about 2 pages. You know,
damn, we are a clone. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, brother. I blame the water.
So then, going on that note, going to Freemasonry for Dummies. Yes. I did the audiobook.
Oh, awesome.
And I think I've done it twice, maybe once, but I remember experiencing inconsistencies and
there's
contradictions. Inconsistencies and contradictions.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, dang, this is too common. Now I know I have to go back because I have to write down my notes of these inconsistencies and contradictions.
And those contradictions are gold, especially within that book, because it teaches you something. I mean, that book itself and everything, when it comes down to reading or understanding the mysteries, is interesting in itself because there's a certain, I mean, it flat out fucking tells you the third ritual.
Like, oh, no shit.
The fuck? And like, yeah, it's telling you the Master Mason ritual. I mean, not the full ritual, but like one of the most significant, huge parts.
Interesting.
And what's interesting about it is it's being told to you by a 30 fucking third. So it's just like he's the guy who is like who's writing the entire book is a 33rd degree Mason, which means that not only has he been awarded with like one of the highest rewards in Freemasonry, which is not high in the
flat out broke.
Yeah.
An oath to publish.
He didn't break the oath. He interpreted it. He interpreted it basically as a 33rd and said, and then went up to a couple of other, 33rds, or maybe his lodge, maybe the Grand Lodge, the head honcho, the Grand Poobah of the state, because American Freemasonry is state by state. It's really interesting. Like just like in the book, it tells you everything like that. And it tells you about like this specific group of 1717 Freemasons, basically, which now consider themselves to be the regular Freemasons, and all other Freemason groups to be irregular. So it's interesting. Like
yeah, that's where I was like, wait a second, you guys aren't all on the same fucking page, and this is like a complete
No, it's like a biker gang.
Misconception. Yeah. Right, you're now we're familiarizing with the big picture.
Gang. Yeah.
Dude, it's a fucking
that's a really good analogy. Yeah, you like that? It's just like the only thing that's in common with every single fucking one of these motherfuckers is a motorcycle. But then you have all these individuals who are like, driving their trucks and their cars, and all they see is these people flying on the fucking street really loudly. and they don't understand the difference between the different kinds of cultures of individuals, the different kinds of traditions and stuff like that. All they see is the fucking bike, and it's the same thing with Freemasonry. All they see is Freemasons, satanic worship, blah blah blah. When the first fucking thing that you discover when you become a Freemason, like doing the first ritual, is that I don't care. It's like the arts and parts part. Yeah, you gotta keep those secret, but the arts and parts are all within the rituals. So saying this part and everything is not going to destroy Freemasonry. But it's a Bible. It's a Christian Bible. The most sacred thing within the Freemason court is a Bible, and it's one of the first translations of the Bible into English. That's it. So, okay. And like, I'm sure some people, some people would understand what that means too, like the significance of King James, the significance of Freemasonry, stuff like that. And
that's where the significance part.
Yeah.
I have not connected the dots to the importance of King Solomon's Temple.
King Solomon's Temple is also a really interesting sort of thing too when you connect hermetics.
That's another thing. That falls in the line of I'm still narrowing down the difference between Democratic and Republican. Hermeticism falls in the same category.
Yeah. And what happens is they both sort of it's like when you take the concept of magic with a K, and then you take hermeticism and you mix those two things. And
magic with a C.
Magic with a K.
Right, but no, when you're mentioning that, I've seen it spelled with the K, and that's sort of like an exclusive spelling towards the esoteric and
it just means
the occult.
Yeah, it just means the esoteric occult, basically. Okay. And so when you go into magic, it's like, so that basically means that they're dealing with as above, so below, hermeticism, stuff like that. Magic is actually the first place.
Okay, the as above, so below is also confusing in terms of its association to Freemasonry altogether, because although it's referenced, when I do a blind, concealed search on the internet for symbolisms on Freemasonry, nowhere do you find as above, so below.
Well, you'll see it because it's hidden. It's hidden in certain sort of areas. Like if you find the Star of David in Freemasonry, that's one place. If you see the pillars,
I've seen the pillars,
Boaz and Jachin, and then you go into traditions of magic accordance to Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and then you ask them significance of the pillars, what is the name, and they'll say Boaz and Jachin. So, there is your commonality. The way to understand Freemasonry is to just kind of to disavow all the sort of things that you understand about good and evil. Disavow all the things that you think about, like, good and evil, that you see it from, a person would see it from sort of a religious perspective. Like in Freemasonry, there's the highest rule in all the lodges is no politics, no religion. You don't get to talk about religion. The only time you get to talk about religion is when you are when you're basically being initiated, and you get to how that religion represents
part is a flag of path. Doors of perception become open and available at that time during the Masons path to whatever into the lodge.
What's interesting is
gatekeeping.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about Freemasonry is it's like it really depends upon the lodge that you go into. To be honest,
that's right. Going back to that part, because they're not all in agreement in the same part of the rituals. Apparently, there's some reinterpretations of the rituals.
Depends on the lodge. Yeah, it depends on the lodge, and then it also depends on the state. And then certain lodges have like a certain sort of way, but it's almost like a fingerprint. Each lodge has their own way about doing things, and you can actually know a lodge by its arts and parts, and its arts and parts is basically its rituals. So the way it does rituals, the way it does this sort of thing, that is the way that the lodge does. And my lodge is very old. It's an old lodge. It was like one of the first, like structures that were
right. It's a historic building.
Yeah. Freemasonry has been out here since 1889. It came out here in Ventura. before that, it was in San Francisco, and before that, people from Missouri brought it over here.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Would it? Of all transplants.
So what happened was a bunch of Freemasons from Missouri, they relocated here, and they wanted to open a lodge, and so they opened their first lodge somewhere in California. I can't really remember where. Maybe San Francisco, I'm not sure.
And the process of opening a lodge is petitioning to a grander lodge?
You petition to a Grand Lodge. That's the lodge in that other state, and then that state will represent you. And
gotcha.
You open the lodge.
So, but if you need a petition,
and then you have to have like a certain amount.
Even though, hey, we're going to be doing some things way different. We're basically looking for sponsorship authorization to get a badge to open doors because we're going to do things a little bit differently.
Well, what happens is they over time will just naturally do things differently.
Isn't that seems like a component that's instilled in the practice of Freemasonry altogether?
In many ways it would.
And that's kind of how the Illuminati was formed.
Well, that's the thing about the Illuminati, though. The Illuminati, like the KKK, are all sort of copies of Freemasonry.
Right.
It's
Adam Weishaupt. Is it Adam Weishaupt's child?
He's not the first person to basically take that sort of moniker of Illuminati. That word has been around for a very, very long time. And the story that we know about White House, or even Francis Bacon, or the group of Freemasons, or the group that Benjamin Franklin allegedly worked with, or some of our founding fathers were basically loosely a part of. It's a really interesting thing because it's like it may not be the sort of quote unquote Illuminati that we're dealing with within. So I shouldn't say the supposed Illuminati that we are dealing with the factual deep state. My favorite thing to do is there are two different groups. There are two different groups of Illuminati, in my opinion. There are the shysters, and then there are the actual organized motherfuckers that are really doing something. They're either working with unknowns, they're working with material apparatuses that can fuck you. So there's a certain sort of, fucking around, and you will find out, but then there's also the kind of way of like, kind of having a respect and at the same time, like asking a question but doing it in an esoteric way, sort of way. And that's the way I go by. It's and then from another perspective, the lower level ones that I speak about, the individuals that are just sort of the shysters, just a group of individuals and everything with like a very small amount of power. Maybe they're hackers. Maybe they're, maybe they have some sort. Maybe they deal in the dark web. Maybe they have a little bit of money, but for the most part, the other apparatus I was talking about could just take them out like at any time. They both exist, just like the same thing as like fake Freemasons. They exist as well. And for many, and in my opinion, those individuals exist.
Faux Masons.
Faux Masons, and there's also like limited illuminists who are more woke than they are illuminated.
Oh shit, that's a heavy one. Yeah,
that sort of commonality is really interesting too. But it's just like, in the end of the day, it's a human club, basically. The same thing with occultists getting together. It's sort of a club of individuals who, depending on which. And I am an occultist. I like to call myself a Christian occultist or an esoteric Christian.
Isn't that an oxymoron?
It's kind of funny because it depends on which church you go to. Depends on which church you're studying in.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
There's more than just one church, and there's a lot of individuals and everything. Completely ignorant. So there are groups of Christians out there, even in other countries and everything, that don't shy away from the devil. They're just like, they're like, here's a glass of whiskey, leave me alone. It's like it's that sort of relationship with with the devil.
Well, I think wouldn't that just qualify as an embracement of both sides, which is the duality above and below?
Yeah,
as above and below, right?
Yeah.
As an embracing both sides.
Yeah, you embrace. That's the type of Christian I am. I embrace both sides. I don't. I don't. I scoff at the sort of satanic apparatus of Satanism or even pseudo-Satanism, because
at the end of the day, that becomes natural law.
It just becomes natural. It just becomes a type of natural law, but also they're just another kind of Christian. They're just a different kind of Christian.
Okay.
Because it's like they might be a type of Christian that are more based upon anti-life, And what's interesting about it is you even see that with Christians. The Westbury Baptist Church, or whatever the fuck what they're called, that church, they call themselves Christian. They're more satanic than Satanists. So it's just like, if they call themselves Christian, then they're just
the white supremacist ones, or the ones that were saying
big white supremacists. So they were bigots, and they were white supremacists. So like anything, it's like all the gays that you allow in the military.
Oh, those ones. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Those guys.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. That's another type of Christian, sadly.
Okay. I see what you're saying. That's a public display of satanic type.
Yeah.
Anti-Christian perspective.
Even when you're a Christian,
that's wild.
I will walk into like online like social media groups where they're able to talk to one another, and these guys basically saying that they're Christian and stuff like that, and they're reading things from a Bible, and it sounds like they're reading some sort of war hymn.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And the guy is they're talking about like some other human that said something negative, and they wish that they could do this to the person, and they read this thing and it talks about doing that thing that they wish that they could do to the person, and I'm like, that's satanic, and this is a Christian group. So it's just like you're looking at that going like, that's lesser. That's the lesser keys, man. That's your blood sacrifice, man. That's your blood altar of Christ, man. It's like, come on. It's like they say,
Oh my God! It's so
in every
good.
single church I have ever gone to, there's always, and they've talked about Satan. They've always said this one common thing in every single church: Satan, or Lucifer, or the Morning Star, whatever they fucking want to call him, is always in the place that you least suspect him. Fucking in church.
No shit! Exactly, well said. Right? And what's crazy is the inability to look and reflect at the actual mirror at the speaker themselves.
Yeah, Christ energy. What is Christ energy? It's like if there's a bunch of transgender kids walking around saying I'm transgender, I'm this, I'm that. You don't spit at them going, you're an apparatus of the devil. It's not even that. You would go walk up to them. I used to say apparatus a lot. I'm sorry. I love that word.
I identify.
They would actually go up to them and go, let's talk about genders. How many genders do you say you are? Infinite. Okay, cool. As far as we can tell, there's 2. There are these books that say there's 3. I don't know if I believe in that. I believe in 3. and then the Native Americans allegedly believe there's 5 or whatnot. But in the end, it would be a different sort of conversation. You'd have individuals saying they'd be talking about it calmly instead of like trying to, beat some Jesus down their throat.
So I would in the whole labeling in terms of the gender. Who didn't get a mention?
Who?
The hermaphrodite.
Yeah, exactly right. There's no hermaphrodite.
Why is that? Because they don't want to shine light on natural occurrence science of a body splitting cells.
Yes. I have met. Let me count them in my head real quick without saying their names. 4 hermaphrodites in my life.
Oh no shit.
Yeah. I've met some, and they've all been awesome. There's this one particular individual.
You would think that there would be a voice resonating from the LGBT community identifying that, but are those transitionals? Whereas,
well, it's the same group of individuals that are saying that there's nothing wrong with drag queens basically dancing in front of kids, or there's nothing wrong with taking kids to like a pride parade.
Okay, so
when there's a guy being strapped onto like this giant axe being flogged in front of kids.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's just like,
so that's controlled narrative.
Yeah, I don't take my kids to a BDS concert. Come on. and I love drag shows, but there are a couple of them that border between BDSM and art, or an adult show and art. And so, there's if there's a show for adults, maybe we shouldn't have kids there. If it's just for adults, maybe we should not have kids go to that. Because it's like it might be too much for their heads.
It's adult activity. It's like playing cards.
And there's a reason why it's called adult activity. It's or adult entertainment but so let's keep it adult. It's like Burning Man. You don't fucking bring. Well, people bring the kids to Burning Man, which I don't agree with. But hey, so. Hey, it's cool.
That's definitely a unique camping trip.
It's a very unique camping trip. I would love to meet the parents and then follow the kids
At first, I wanted to go, but
for 30 years.
That was only because I was drawn to this idea of burning a guy. I didn't care about the community aspect of it. I was fascinated with the burning guy, dude. And then I found out what the community part aspect, what the internal, how that shit worked. And what they were charging money to do all this shit. I'm like, dude, guys, I'll just fucking burn a pallet, man.
Yeah, I'll just drive out to the Mojave Desert and burn a pallet. That's been my philosophy so far. I love the philosophy. I love a lot of the philosophy of Burning Man. I love the concepts of it and stuff like that, and the sort of stuff on paper. I don't really see it being practiced a lot, especially within different burning communities.
It's been referenced in this research, during the research of uncovering what they went through this last time, was that the ritual is perceived as a satanic ritual.
Ha!
Yeah.
Well, it's a bonfire.
Right. That's the. I forgot the key talking points on this perspective, but I was. In which I'm surprised I didn't have take points, because it was an argument I was interested in listening to, like almost arguments that sound preposterous, like moon landing.
There's some really interesting aspects of that too, where I would say that the moon landing did happen. I don't know if the first one did, but I know that there's something really interesting about the moon. And also what's really interesting about that sort of debate. What's going to be interesting though is in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years actually, all these debates will be able to be subtly rested. We'll basically find out whether or not it was just a giant.
You think so?
Propaganda.
Disclosure? Full disclosure?
Well, we're seeing it now with the UAPs.
I think yes, possibly, but to go to the extent of saying, hey, that moon shit, we was fooling you.
Well, that would be really. They would have to come out eventually.
Interesting.
And because you can't look what's going on with the sort of the UAP hearings. Here's this guy who was basically an auditor, and he came out as a whistleblower, and basically what he did was he did all this research. He was sent in to do an audit on all these different sort of black site things and what they were obtaining, and he was going and talking to various different people. And as soon as he accumulated his findings, he sent in his report, and then he got a lawyer. And then he became a whistleblower.
Oh, okay.
Which is exactly what you want to do. You don't just become a whistleblower, you get a lawyer.
Yeah, I guess so. Right, yeah.
So
lawyer for a good one.
So he did that, and it was crazy because I actually saw this guy at a Star Trek convention a couple of years ago.
Okay.
It was really interesting. The guy came up to me asking me what my shirt said, and I remember just wanting to get away from him as quick as possible. Get away from me. Just something about him, I just had some really interesting vibes about him and stuff like that. And then Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp were at this thing, but I had this really weird sort of it was almost like an inner command not to get in the way.
Interesting.
Basically.
Wait, what? This was almost like shill.
Yeah.
Shill vibe?
More of like, don't go there. I saw Jeremy Corbell. I've talked to him before, and I saw him and somebody said just observe and don't talk to him. And so I just observed and I didn't talk.
That's right.
And I wanted to talk to George Knapp too.
That's a hard thing to do.
It was. I know.
Well, I mean, I guess if you have preconceived, a little bit of judgment working with you beforehand, it is easier to just observe. But I would think...
Well, you know, the denial factor is something that does happen. Especially the sort of the ridicule. I'm trying to say ridicule factor. That does happen. And it is hurtful. You know, when you're younger, it's very traumatizing. But as you get older, the unfortunate thing is you just kind of learn that it's going to be something you're just going to have to deal with. But the question is, you know, what sort of stage are you dealing with it? So if you're going up to, like, say, a celebrity or a person or an author or stuff like that, and then you talk to them and they, you know, deny and ridicule you because of it, even though in their book they talked about it, you just, you know, put your hands up. It's fine.
Yeah.
But then when you know, this sort of thing, or like a Joe Rogan show, and you start talking about it, and suddenly you have people on you know, Twitter, 10,000, 100,000 people on Twitter telling me that, you know, saying that you're full of shit, you know, that might hurt. But it really hurts usually when it's your family. Just, you know, you're a kid telling them about this thing that happened to you, and they either just kind of invalidate it or deny it or ridicule you or any of that.
My mom does that shit with me about my first psychiatrist visit that they gave me Ritalin, and
that's not good for everybody.
Yeah, no, like I explained to her how the situation went down, and she has a complete absence of that memory.
It's probably better for her not to have it. Maybe that's like a form of a coping mechanism.
Possibly.
Yeah.
But they gave her no, like, my kindergarten says he can't come back until something's done. They cornered her essentially, and then my pediatrician referred to this psychiatrist when it was probably 5-6 years old, because I was just in kindergarten, and I specifically remember subsequently after that traumatizing meeting with that psychiatrist, I got a student of the month, and I remember the pretext of the announcement being like, hey, this sounds a lot like me.
Let me get you a chair real quick.
Huh? We're about...
Let's get you a chair.
Okay. No, I'm good though.
Are you good?
Yeah. Because I'm a pacer anyway. Okay. We hit an hour already, so we're about to possibly wrap up here in a second anyway. Because it's good stopping point.
Oh yeah.
I mean, 1 hour is pretty good.
I hear you, buddy. Yeah, you know, I'm hoping that the question in regards to the moon landing will be answered, because I'm a believer in it, but to be very honest, I'm also a skeptic of certain sort of aspects too, because there are certain things that are just like, that aren't kind of stacking up, but then there's this sort of excuse that we've been given, and so I'm like, okay, cool, that's the excuse, okay, fine, no problem, we'll see. So it's like Amanda Heard and Johnny Depp, right?
Have you researched any connect the dots materials, videos?
Oh yeah,
on the debunking.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I had a friend I was doing a music project with, and they were extremely vocal that the moon landing did not happen.
How long ago was that?
This was 8 years ago.
Okay, gotcha.
And we were just working on a project together. It didn't really pan out, but the fucking info he gave me was like really interesting. And then later on, as technology started getting better and my knowledge in photography started getting better, and then I started seeing the same photos NASA was using over and over and over again to basically like just certain sort of inconsistencies, and then I started I started not being able to sort of believe that, you know, NASA, because I was like, what the fuck are you telling us? You said that this image here was taken from this moon landing, and then this image here was taken from this moon landing. It's the same fucking photo. Excuse me? And it's like, so instantly it's like, NASA, you're Amanda Heard, and you're fucking with me. So it's like, I'm Johnny Depp, and I'm going to figure out the fuck's going on. No joke.
Interestingly, you mentioned those two names.
Yeah.
They came up as both members of Freemasonry in a video that was posted.
Well, I mean, maybe they are a form of Freemason. They're definitely not the Freemason group I'm a part of.
I think the video is implying
maybe
that the debacle they went through in court was a PR.
Well, it's interesting if it was PR or if it was like live.
Real done PR.
It's almost like watching a soap opera, except it's real, and you have a certain sort of apparatus that is, never let a crisis go away. There's always an opportunity, and every crisis there's an opportunity, and then.
I think also isn't there though a component involved where if you gain a felony, you are no longer a member.
In Freemasonry, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay,
but however, and that's lodge by lodge. So that's one of the areas of Freemasonry where I think that needs to change.
Okay.
Well, so
inconsistency.
Yes, you like that? So I'll give you an example. In my lodge, if you have a felony and you went to jail, and then you want to become a Freemason, and they find out you have a felon, what will happen is you'll have all the senior brothers get together and they'll sit around and they'll go, okay, so tell us what happened. And then maybe this is your felony. Someone killed my wife, so I hunted him down and killed him. I spent 20 years in jail. I understand what I did was wrong, but I would do it again. And then all the Freemasons would look at each other and go, damn fucking right you would. You would too. Come on in, brother. Keep your shit together. We'll keep on the
It's a fucking motorcycle gang.
But in the end, it's honorable. It's honorable gentlemen, basically, and it all depends on the story. It all depends on the tale. You will definitely believe that the guys, especially at my lodge, will absolutely fucking find out whether or not you're fucking around or not. And my lodge is incredibly patient. And if you're ever looking to be a Freemason and you're in Ventura County, please consider Lodge 214, Shell Islands Lodge in Ventura.
Nice
drop. No, they're good. There's a gentleman there. There's so many different people to mention, but the gentleman there, his name is Nate Beavers, and Nathaniel Beavers, and he is a fantastic pastmaster, as well as just a phenomenal individual to work with, as far as just an everyday good human, in my opinion. And you'll find people like that at that lodge too, where they're just willing to work with you, especially if you are really interested in understanding the craft. And there's so many different things to learn about. But at the same time, one of the biggest things to demystify yourself with Freemasonry is that entire concept that you were talking about, the inconsistencies. That's the and with that you find what's that?
That's an OCD nightmare.
Well, not only is it an OCD nightmare, but it also shows, for me, I think you're right, it is an OCD nightmare, but it's also a sign of the unorganization, complete.
That's the
different lodges.
Yeah, that right.
And so
that part.
That's why I'm so skeptical when it comes down to this sort of idea of this clandestine overseer or Illuminati, sort of like what happened in Maui. I mean, that's another podcast. But God, that's a great rabbit hole. Man, Blue.
Well said.
Blue Lodge.
Blue. Oh,
you think
dude, you just connected.
Do you think that would have do you think that thing would? Do you think those things would have survived the fire?
Oh, dude, Blue Lodge.
6.66 hertz. Yep.
That's the frequency of the blue laser?
No, but apparently that's the frequency of blue or something like that. I don't know.
The color frequency?
Some sort of frequency.
Well, the colors do have assigned frequencies.
I think it's 6.66.
Oh, wow.
My favorite color blue is 7.2.
So on that one, we're going to wrap this one up. We're a minute in, or an hour and 8 minutes in. That's a perfect time to stop for the next one we could pick up. Luckily, we can shove this stuff through ChatGPT and it chops up and does...
nice.
Captions and shit like that. Yeah.
Nice.
Create some reels out of this. Yeah. But I enjoyed this conversation.
Absolutely.
Fucking tremendously.
Yeah, tremendously too, brother. I hope we get to have this conversation again. And thank you.
Absolutely. We'll make it a regular thing.
Yeah, cool.
Hope you enjoyed. If you like this, please like, subscribe, and share. Thank you.